Stellaris is currently a game that is a little bit in flux. It's 6 years old, there is a lot of new content, but there is also a plethora of old material. And one of the older systems within the game is, of course, the Tradition system. It came out around the same time as Utopia. Of course, those Ascension perks were tacked on for free later on, but still, it's important to know that it is going to change. Yes, the Custodians team has decided to move on from the current system and get something more flexible in place. So for those of you who don't know, the Traditions right now, they're basically little modifiers that allow you to specialize your empire, and in particular Supremacy is good because of the war doctrines, and some of the other ones have pretty cool ones as well. Expansion and Discovery are pretty much the go-to ones that anybody usually goes through with the game. However, this particular system is very linear, and basically you don't really have a lot of flexibility. All your options are already pre-chewed, pre-masticated, and basically it's just a case of which one will you go first for. However, this is going to change in the brand new Traditions update. We will see the following. Well, no longer will we have preset traditions being added to the pool, but instead you will be given 7 empty slots that you can fill in whatever you want. And what do I mean by that? Well, I got this nice little image right here, and basically what happens is that you can adopt whatever tradition you like as long as it fits within the empire that you are playing. What it translates to is for instance, in this particular case, you can have access to adaptability or diplomacy or discovery, domination, expansion, harmony, mercantile, prosperity, subterfuge, supremacy, and unyielding, and it does not even include the special hive mind and robot ones. So there's a lot of really cool things on the horizon for Stellaris with the upcoming LEM update. Now, one of these, or should I say 3 of these of the list I just mentioned, are going to be brand new, and we're going to be going over some of those and basically talk you guys through on what to expect of the new tradition trees that will be coming in our general direction, as well as some of the changes of the tradition trees that are also coming, because some of these new traditions replace older ones, and I will clarify that as we go along. First of all, I'm going to start off with the first one that is free for any game, really. If you have vanilla, you will be able to play with this particular new tree. I gotta mention that some of these trees are locked behind certain expansions, which basically means that in the future we can expect additional trees to be added through expansions, or retroactively being added through previous expansions in the Custodians program. Anyway, Mercantile is the very first one. It's a mixture of prosperity, and basically this is a great way to generate insane amount of energy. Basically what it does is it generates a lot of trade value. So let's go over it, shall we? First of all, the adoption mechanic gives you a star-based collection range of +1 and trade protection +5. That basically means you will never have to put the joys of Strikecraft on your stations ever again to get additional defense on your trade lanes. And of course, that is situated like this in the trade system, and you can have a better look at what is going on. Still, though, there's a lot of additional ones as well. Trickle-up economics basically gives clerks an additional trade value. You know, clerks right now are basically the dump stat worker, as here they are. They usually only generate 4 trade value per pop, and basically also a little bit of amenities. But with this particular one, you will get additional trade value, which in this particular case means that you get 5 additional trade value, which translates to 5 additional energy, which is definitely not a small amount. And this will synergize with other stuff down the line as well. Then we get to Commercial Enterprises, which is the next one on the tree. Commercial Zone buildings will now provide a additional merchant job. Now, commercial zones are basically a building. Here they are, and they generate additional clerk jobs, which in combination with the previous tree item will give you an additional bonus, which is rather useful. But the merchant job is the big one, where you can get a ruler, which is of course a merchant, which will generate a reasonable amount of additional resources, amenities, as well as trade value, which is really nice. It also applies to the commercial districts on ring worlds and habitats. So if you're going to go for full-on energy production and just pay for everything on the galactic market instead of just generating it, then going with Mercantile will be really, really good. Then there is adaptive economic policies, which basically means is that you can convert part of trade value into into Unity or consumer goods. So basically, the trade policies can be unlocked through this tree. You will no longer be able to convert trade value into energy and consumer goods or Unity unless you have the adaptive economic policies. So basically, the policies right here, if we go to the tree, basically very similar to, say, the war policies or the supremacy policies. The trade policies will now be unlocked through this particular tree, which is rather interesting. Consumer benefits, of course, will give you half the energy from your trade value in consumer goods, and marketplace of ideas is the same idea, except you get a bunch of Unity. So that's actually really cool. I really like this, the fact that the certain content is locked behind basically your choices. Having the flexibility of using certain policies is really, really nice. And of course, like I mentioned, the war doctrines policy on the supremacy is really nice. And of course, the edict for research subsidies under databank uplinks under Discovery kind of falls into the same boat, which I think is really, really cool. Federal Trade Fleets is a tradition swap for empires that are members of a trade league federation. And basically what it means is it increases fleet contribution to the Federation fleet by 50%, which is very similar to Danton. And Danton, of course, is under diplomatic policies. And basically what you can do there is you get an additional amount of trade naval capacity, or at least Federation naval capacity, which is nice. So basically it allows you to do a mercantile fleet and all that jazz. Then there's the Marketplace of Better Ideas, which increases trade value by 10%, which is nice. Additional money is always good. Insider trading, which has been moved from diplomacy traditions, as you may have seen here already, open markets and all that stuff, insider trading. You may have noticed that a lot of this stuff has moved over to mercantile. Basically gives you a reduction in trade market fee. Now, trade market fee, obviously, at the start of the game starts at 30%. You can lower that through various means, but through this policy, you can get a minus 10% on for that, so that you're only dealing with 20%. So if you want to play the galactic market, going for mercantile is looking very strong. And finally, the finisher will give you a trade value of an additional 10%. So with the entire tree up and running, not only will you get an additional trade value of 20% in total, you will also get access to the new to the older trade policies as they've moved into this tree, and you will get a ton of additional trade value from our good friends that everybody hates, the clerks, and of course one single merchant. And you will get more merchants, obviously, as you get more pops on your worlds. Now, again, this one is free within the game. You can play with this at any time you want once LEM launches. Now we get to the trees that are locked behind expansions, one of which is Unyielding. Unyielding is a combination of Supremacy, where Supremacy obviously is a more aggressive approach. Unyielding is the defensive approach here. So the trees, once again, are being split up, similar to how Prosperity is kind of sort of being split up, with a dash of Diplomacy being thrown in. Adoption, it gives you +2 starbase cap and an upgrade speed of 50. It's very similar to what Supremacy has at the moment, and as you may expect, Supremacy will change that adoption bonus in order to make things a little bit more interesting. Resistance is frugal. Stronghold buildings that will now produce 3 Unity, and defensive army health is increased by 30%. So the building that we're talking about here is, of course, the Stronghold, which by default did not give you that +3 Unity. But still, you know, getting a bunch of additional bonuses on your planetary guard, on your garrison is really, really nice. And if you just want to go for a full-on, you know, a world which is covered in fortresses, a fortress world, one may say. Cadia did not break, obviously. And yeah, that's a really nice bonus, especially if you have a station somewhere or a planet somewhere that you just want to fill up with fortresses. It's going to be really powerful. Bulwark of Harmony, which has been moved from the Harmony tree, obviously, is now moved into the Unyielding tree, which makes perfect sense in the defensive war with another empire. Again, it's a defensive thing. Build speed of ships is increased by 33%, and your fire rate within your borders gains 15% as well, which is really, really nice. Fortress Doctrine increases the hit points and damage of star bases as well as defensive platforms by 33%, and also reduces the upkeep of star bases by 20%. This feels very similar to the Great Game, except that it's kind of sort of inverted. The Great Game itself has also changed slightly in the Supremacy tree, but basically star bases will become more powerful powerful, even more powerful than they were in the Great Game by a full 13%, which is rather nice. It's a nice little bonus, and again, it will make your star bases incredibly powerful, and basically you can have a fortress-style culture, which I think is really cool. And then finally, there's defense in depth. My apologies. Increase the starbase cap once again by +2 and reduce the starbase upgrade cost by 50%. And on top of that, if you own Nemesis, you can do hostile operations, and they will basically get a bonus to sabotage starbase operation, which is rather nice. And finally, the max defensive platforms +50 on the finisher basically means that getting starbases well over 100k is going to be relatively easy for those of you who are working with the unyielding tree, especially if you are in a situation where there are fanatic purifiers or particularly hostile aliens nearby in the early game. Then going for this particular tree could be very useful, of course, in combination with Supremacy, so that you can wield both the stick as well as the shield. Then we get to the Subterfuge tree. Now, the Subterfuge tree is completely new. It is locked behind Nemesis because it's full on the subject of, well, subterfuge. All the spying is in here, and that's something that this particular tree specializes on. The spying itself and all that stuff is not all that great in the game. I do wish that it was a little bit more powerful, and there's nothing really locked behind this, which I think is unfortunate in terms of gameplay and mechanics. Anyway, as soon as you adopt it, you get a code breaking bonus. Basically, you can get intel on other empires more easily. Operational security, another code breaking bonus, as well as a operation skill bonus, where you can basically get more, your operations are going to be easier to do. Informational security, additional encryption, other empires won't be able to infiltrate you that easily. Non-disclosure agreements, which is rather interesting. Hostile operation is increased by one point. Basically, it's more difficult for other empires to do operations on you. And hostile operations cost and upkeep is increased by 50%. So it becomes more expensive to do operations on you. So other empires are going to have a more difficult time trying to infiltrate your space. If you want to play, or role play in particular, something like the Inward Perfectionists or something along those lines, then this is going to be completely up your alley. Double agents, which whenever a hostile operation target fails on us, especially in combination with code breaking and operation scale and difficulty on hostile operations and all that jazz, you get 10 intel on the offending empire. So you'll be able to see which empire did stuff to you and then follow suit. Shadow Recruits increases infiltration speed by 50%. If you want to get intel relatively quickly, this is a good way of dealing with things. And finally, the finisher, successful operations refund half their cost on infiltration level. So this is the thing, right? There's not a lot of stuff locked behind this tree, and I really wish some more operations were locked behind this tree, something more interesting than what we have at the moment, because whilst the infiltration system as well as the spy system is nice, it does feel like it lacks content or interesting mechanics at the moment, which is something that I think is unfortunate, but I guess this is a system they can build on in the future. And these are the new trees. At this point in time, if you feel, you know what, I've seen enough, I don't want to know anything about what the other trees are doing, that's fine. You can go off on this one. Make sure you like and subscribe, of course. But we're going to be talking about what changes are going to be coming in to the existing trees. Now, Domination has Judgment Corps. In this particular case, it's called Public Trust Officers. They will no longer increase crime prevention, but instead officers will, or enforcers, will produce additional unity. Now, right now, at the start of the game, you will get enforcers by default. So basically, under our specialist, you will get a bunch of additional unity, which I guess is nice. It's not the greatest in the world, but yeah, I'd rather would have not have that. So yeah. Privy Council now also increases edict cap by +1. Privy Council is down here, of course. Previously, it gave you a ruler cap +2. Basically, it means you can get another edict, which is, of course, under the edicts menu. Can be pretty powerful if you don't have an empire with a lot of edict capacity, but not necessarily the greatest. The finisher no longer provides +1 unit of influence a month, which is what it did before, but it increases admin cap by 20%. I do believe that they are going to increase this to a larger number. I believe it could be up to 40%. Otherwise, it's not nearly as powerful to say courier network because it gives you a discount rather than an increase, but the numbers effectively stay the same. Domination by itself, still not the greatest. Sure, workplace motivators is nice if you have a lot of slaves, but I think overall, you know, domination was not really all that good to begin with, except for maybe the blockers. There's a lot of niche things that you can do with domination, especially if you're starting, say, on a relic world or something like that, but still, it's something you want to keep in the back of your head. Diplomacy, as we already talked about, is going to change significantly due to the changes with Mercantile, and this entire right side of the tree is effectively gone and moved over. Open markets, as we've already talked about, is being replaced by diplomatic networking. Basically, embassy packs will now produce +3 unity. So if you have a very dense galaxy with a lot of alien empires, and you want to have embassies everywhere, then this would be a good idea to have. You can generate all the unity in the world and not having to deal with the stuff on planets. Secure shipping has been changed to eminent diplomats. Basically, it will give you an acceptance bonus in diplomatic stuff by 5 points. Basically, it means you can get treaties a lot easier. And envoys that are improving relations will give you a 1% chance per month to gain a favor of the other empire, which of course you can then leverage for resources, or maybe put them in, say, I don't know, a federation or something along those lines. Then there is insider trading, which has been replaced by trust or bust, which basically increases the trust cap on other empires by 50% and also trust growth by 33%. Basically, it will give other empires an easier time, or gives you an easier time on other empires to get more treaties going, which again can be really difficult if you want to steer your stuff into a certain direction. If you want to have a trade league or something along those lines, this in combination with Mercantile could be really, really powerful. And finally, Finisher no longer increases trust cap or trust growth, but increases diplo weight by 10%, and you get an additional envoy, which in the galactic community, as well as various other locations, can be really powerful. If you have a very strong diplomatic stance within the galactic community, you can leverage that to basically push whatever you want through and maybe even become the custodian. Then there are some more changes to Harmony as well. Mind and Body now also increases leader skill cap by +1, in addition to getting increased lifespan of 20 years. It's kind of similar to Colonial Viceroys in that way. Kinship has changed. The motion time will be changed to 75%. Right now in my game it's 25%, which is rather interesting. And finally, Bulwark of Harmony has been swapped out, as it is now in the unyielding tree, and basically it's being replaced by something called Harmonious Directives, which gives you another edict cap point, which once again will be very nice in the influence department. Supremacy, you no longer get the adoption bonus of getting 2 additional star bases. That has now been moved to unyielding. Makes perfect sense. And instead, you will get a naval cap bonus of 20, which is really nice in the early game if you want to go on the offensive. The Great Game, all the old effects have been removed, and basically now increases damage to star bases to 20%. So basically, this is very nice early game to get a large fleet up and running and start hammering down enemy star bases. Always make sure that you have point defense on at least 5 of your ships in your fleet to make sure that, you know, star bases are not a problem, because they tend to shit out missiles. Finally, Prosperity. The finisher has been changed. They will no longer give merchant jobs per pops on the planet, because obviously that has been moved to Mercantile, but instead increases stability by +5. And pop resource output has been increased by 5% as well, and that applies to all empires. That right there is really powerful, because getting an additional stability bonus is super good, especially in combination with, say, I want to say Utopian Dream. Yeah, there it is. An additional 5% on all planets, well, basically means that you can get a 10% bonus to stability plus a 5% output bonus to all your resources on all planets, which is incredibly powerful. And basically it means you can start running away. So basically Prosperity in combination with Mercantile can be super powerful. And that's basically all the changes that we can expect from this here update. There are still a bunch of things that we can expect from the LEM update. Next week, for instance, we're going to be talking about the new humanoid civics, but still quickly walking back, looking at the diagram for all the trees, we do see that there is a bunch of slots still open, and we're going by color code in this particular case. Adaptability and diplomacy are in the blue color code, and supremacy and unyielding, as well as mercantile and prosperity, are all in their own color code, etc. But it means that discovery, domination, expansion, harmony, subterfuge, all of those have their own color code that are still open, and we may actually get new trees down the line that will synergize in such a way, because it's kind of like taking one thing and splitting it into twine and giving their own bonuses, which is where unyielding makes sense, or mercantile makes sense, etc. Subterfuge, for instance, does not have its own split tree, which would make sense, but who knows what we will see there. So what do you think? Do you like this change? Do you like having the flexibility of just picking whatever tradition tree you like? Or do you think that some of these trees are going to be super powerful if you combine them together? What synergies do you think are going to be really, really good? Leave a comment down below, because I'm really looking forward to see your paper crafting on traditions within empires and what you are going to go first. Of course, it's going to be discovery and expansion. It's basically the default. But some of the new ones, are they going to be in your standard playbook? We will see. In the meantime, though, we're going to wrap up this video. As I mentioned, next time we're going to be talking about the new changes coming to humanoids, new civics, new traits, maybe. I do not know. I don't know what kind of traits would you put in there. But apparently it's going to be very fantasy orientated, which I think is rather cool. But yeah, update to humanoids coming next time in the next video. So make sure that you subscribe to the show, because you know, then you'll be kept in the loop. In the meantime, we're gonna go wrap it up here. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons for making this series possible. If it wasn't without you, well, we wouldn't have this. Then we couldn't have nice things. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.